Hey guys, here's a little explanation on how cosines, sines, and tangents and their reciprocal functions, cosecant, secant, and cotangents work. So, here we have the sine of theta. Alright, now with right triangle trigonometry, here's how it goes. If theta is right here, and theta is just the Greek symbol that we use for the angle, then sine of theta is defined as opposite over hypotenuse. We call this the opposite side because it's across from the angle. And the hypotenuse of a right triangle is just kind of always the hypotenuse. It's the longest side. The cosine is defined as adjacent over hypotenuse, and the tangent is defined as opposite over adjacent. And then we got their buddies over here. Now, sine's best buddy is the cosecant. The cosecant is simply defined as the reciprocal of the sine. Where sine is opposite over hypotenuse, the cosecant would be hypotenuse over opposite, 5 over 3. The secant would be the buddy of the cosine. All right. The cosine's definition is adjacent over hypotenuse, so the secant would be hypotenuse over adjacent. Now with the tangent, we have opposite over adjacent, opposite side over adjacent side. The cotangent is the buddy to the tangent, and it is defined as adjacent over opposite. All right, I'm going to take a second and erase the board, and then I'm going to give you a quick example of how these might become handy, or how these might become useful. Okay, here's an example for you. Let's say we're trying to solve for the hypotenuse of this triangle. And so you look at the angle, which is in this example is 35 degrees. And let's see, we have the opposite side and we have an unknown side that we're trying to solve for, which would be the hypotenuse. So we set up our equation and we say, all right, I've got opposite and hypotenuse. Sine involves opposite and hypotenuse. So I'm going to write my equation this way. The sine of 35 degrees equals opposite over hypotenuse. And then I have to do a bunch of work to solve for x. So in this case, I would have to times both sides by x. This cancels x out on this side, and it ends up over here. Next step, I have x times the sine of 35 equals 7. Next step, now I have to divide by the sine of 35 to get x alone. So maybe we'll do this in a different color. So we divide both sides by the sine of 35. Okay, finally, x is alone. X equals 7 over whatever the sine of 35 is. So I should get some number that's greater than 7. All right. Now, what if I want a simpler and faster way to do that? Let's do it over here. What if I use the cosecant instead? Sine has a buddy. It's called the cosecant. So let's write our equation. The cosecant of 35 degrees equals, instead of opposite over hypotenuse, how about hypotenuse over opposite? Okay, let's see how many steps this takes. We got a 7 on the bottom, so let's times both sides by 7. Just to cancel it out on the bottom over here. And as you know, 7 is really 7 over 1. So yes, I can cross-cancel this. Now I have 7 times the cosecant of 35 degrees equals x. Look, one step. Okay, had to do a little bit of work on this step, but one step, and x is now solved for. Of course, you'll have to get your calculator and find out what the cosecant of 35 is, and then times that by 7. And over here, you'd have to do 7 divided by whatever the sine of 35 is with your calculator. But again, look at the difference in work. All right, the same holds true for secant, the buddy of the cosine, and the cotangent, which is the buddy of the tangent. I hope that's helpful as far as the reciprocal functions, cosecant, secant, and cotangent. Once again, I appreciate each and every one of you, students or not. Thank you very much. Have a good day.